Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the RENNSPORT community events back on the RENNSPORT channel. And today we are back in the normal formation, so you see my view of things with the lovely voice of Tim Ireland joining me again.
Hello.
And, well, for this race with a pretty different car, a car that we haven't seen in quite a while, but of course a staple of the RENNSPORT history, if some of you remember that. The Porsche Mission R at Jeddah Corniche, which I think is something I quite haven't planned that this is the case, but I mean, recently we've seen some of the most action-packed Formula E races on this car, or not with this car, of course, but with electric cars on this very track, and I hope we can reproduce some of that today. We are right now in qualifying, where every driver will have 2 qualifying laps. And what do you expect for today, Tim? Do you think it will be more of a survival race, or 2 races actually, or do you think we will see some close on-track action in the race?
Well, it's a spec series. They're all the same car, which tends to lead to some close action. We've had some really good racing on Jeddah, which is also good. Like you said, it is 2 shorter races, so people might be a bit hungry to overtake. And there is, as you can see on screen, a lot of walls at Jeddah. So there's also a fairly high possibility of some carnage, I'd say. Although I hope not. So a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything indeed. Of course, this car also does feature 2 distinct modes. We're right now in qualifying. You can see how quickly those cars go, especially around the final 2 turns and now on the backswitch, basically. Because these cars feature qualifying mode, which increases the horsepower by a lot, and I mean a lot. So come race pace, the pace will be different. People have to adjust again. Currently on pole, Enrico Bräuniger. But I think the second lap will be the one that most people will get a good lap time in. Because in practice you could choose between race and quali mode. I've not seen many people using quali mode there. And of course this qualifying session will determine your grid position for race 1. There are 2 races. Race 2 will be determined by the finishing order of race 1. So it might not be the most important session actually of this day. I think race 1 will be of much more importance. Depending on if you try to set yourself up for a good race 2, if you try to go for glory in the first race already. That will be the deciding factor.
I think it depends on the skill of the driver and how much they really want to win race 2, I guess. If they're quite a good driver but have a bit of an accident in race 1, they might just try to set themselves up for a decent race 2 rather than risking everything for the instant win race 1.
Oh, and Nico Ronninger going wide and losing a good lap here. Of course, going off track here, you can't quite do it at many points, but it will invalidate your lap.
Yeah, there's a couple of S-bends where you can off track and invalidate for sure. But most of the track is pretty walled in. But hitting the walls isn't necessarily a good idea, so try not to do that. No crazy NASCAR moves.
Oh, and then Hood currently is second. Alizar didn't do a valid lap last time on. I think he maybe have another one. But currently a front row lockout for FDRT.
Yeah. One of our staple teams here at RENNSPORT. FDRT doing pretty well there, taking the front row of the grid. They should be able to control the race going into the first turn.
Big damage there to Brian Gietza's car.
we've got a lot of new names here today. So a few unknowns. They might be quick, they might not be quick. Throwing a bit of chaos into the equation.
I think that's interesting. And the driver we are right now spectating is one of those newer drivers. As we see another of the new drivers in chat. But you can see the POV from Radoslav Pironkiec. I'm sorry. We've talked about it before the stream. And of course, the first time I try to say it, it's gonna be butchered. I'm very sorry. But you can watch his POV on Twitch. He's live as well. So if you want to have a different view to our broadcast on your end, you can just check it out. Just type in either RENNSPORT for the category and go to his stream. Or in the Discord, send it in. Otherwise, it's Foxcat15. But we are now getting ready for the race. It will be a standing start. So it's nice to have more community streams out there, but now it's time to go racing. We've seen the lights come on. 5th light. And we go racing in Jeddah. Seems to be a good getaway there from P4. It will be a bit hard to distinguish the cars, of course. And we've already seen a change of lead going into turn 2. Ronan Hood takes the lead away from his colleague Enrico Broiniger. Behind them, it's side by side between Fly and Radoslav. Bit more side by side behind. Oh, and contact. Bigger pile up in the back. The 13 car of James Binner. The 4 car of Piotr Zdaibel involved. Doesn't seem to be too much damage to his car. Just to the rear left.
No, his car seems pretty close. Seems pretty clean, sorry.
Cars running right. You can do that here and there, but you can't do it too much. Otherwise, you will get a penalty. Ali Zahir found his way up into 3rd already.
That was some good threading the needle by Ali Zahir there. Unfortunately, Brian Gerstas is not looking like the best Porsche right now. But thank you for showing off our damage model.
And he's parking it. Maybe we'll see him back for race 2. Of course, then we will have another chance. Anson Flyer trying his best to get past Radoslav Pironkiec, who goes very wide here. Lose the position for now. Ali Zahir, though, looks pretty fast. But Rondon Hood up front, he was complaining before that he couldn't drive the car well and wasn't sure if he's gonna show up. And right now he has the lead of 2.3 seconds over Enrico Broiniger after lap 1.
Yeah, he seems to have had a really good first lap there and put a pretty decent lead on the pack for a 25-minute race.
Piotr Zdaibel on the rear end of Joanjo Carbonell. Can't quite find his way past now. Oh, but Carbonell runs wide. And Zdaibel immediately uses it to his advantage and moves up into P5. It's a very different kind of racing than what we used to see with the GT3s, GT4s, and whatever we are running usually. I mean, it's one of... Yeah, you go ahead.
It's a bit of a less known car, that's for sure. It's not a car people drive very often. It's been free this week, but the good thing with the GT3s is everybody knows how to drive a GT3. So the driving is fairly consistent and safe. Whereas with these kind of more wildcardy cars, it can be a bit hectic, and sometimes somebody just gels with it really quickly.
And I mean, you don't really have that much full-on electric cars featured in the sim racing scene, don't you? I mean, of course, there's Formula E, which is featured in a few games, not many actually, which I find a bit sad because I think Formula E is a great series in terms of how they run things. I mean, you may think differently about electric cars and stuff. I'm not the biggest fan, in all honesty. But just the racing there is astonishing, and partly comes down to them being electric. And the Porsche Mission R is an all-wheel drive electric car, and going on the throttle in this car is different. Something that you will never experience in a car like a GT3. So you
It was
pick your
a
racing
very
line
popular
different.
choice on Goodwood, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Because
really
it's
was.
just kind of a rush driving it.
Can be very aggressive with it, especially now in race mode, where the car by itself is more tame. Salazar is now right on the back bumper of Enrico Bräuninger. Pionkiewicz has dropped down a lot. I wonder if he went to the pits. This car's good as new, so it doesn't seem to be a big issue, at least at the moment. And up front also, Ronan Hood has lost a lot of time, and Enrico Bräuninger is still catching.
That puts the top three cars very close together now. It's only a second and a half between the top three.
Indeed it is.
And Piotr Zadybal just getting past Anson Flyer to take fourth place. Oh, and then spinning. Oh, they both spun.
Both.
Well, Anson Flyer being very gentlemanly there in letting Piotr settle first. So maintaining positions at least.
Oh, Alizai getting past Enrico Bräuninger with the better exit out of the final turn. Enrico Bräuninger undercutting to the inside. Not going for the move here, though.
And he's eating into that gap up to Rowan de Horde here. He seems to have some really good pace. Ali Zahir's last lap was a 1:59, the only person to have gone sub 2 minutes so far.
And that is a good time in race mode. Difference between race and quali mode on this track is about 7 to 8 seconds. And he's going for the move. He's on the inside of Rowan Hood. Coming into the corner on the other end of the circuit. It's a tricky braking zone, but I think he got it. And Ronan Hood is running wide and has to worry about his colleague at FDRT, Enrico Bräuninger, now on his outside. Oh, Bräuninger nearly losing the rear there.
But Enrico Bräuninger making it through, if briefly.
Well, this is the racing action we've been talking about.
It's very close between them two right now, but it's letting Ali Zahir walk off into the distance, already up to a nearly 2-second lead.
And we have another pack forming from P4 to 5. Ensign Flyers getting a visit from Juanro Carbonell, who himself has Swadoslav Pionkiewicz just behind him. Is that Piotr? Oh, and that was odd.
Yeah, it was a strange crash there, because I don't think there was any contact between the two of them.
I don't know, it seemed like... Oh, and Enrico Bräuninger going for P2 against Ronan Hood again. Or the other way around, Ronan Hood reclaiming P2.
I don't think there's going to be any accusations of team orders in the FDRT team here.
No,
They seem
definitely
to
not.
be they seem to be knocking each other sideways, much to the delight of Ali Zahir.
And the situation between Carbonell and Pionkiewicz was, I think, very odd in a way that Carbonell seemed to slow down a bit. Oh, and Enrico Bonninger going for a gap that at first didn't exist, and he just opened it up. And again, side by side.
These two are having some fun today, aren't they?
Oh, but then her brushing the wall doesn't seem to be too bad.
Ali Zahir seemed to be pretty consistently in the 159.5s right now. His last lap was a 0.49, his best lap was a 0.3. So he seems to have got his eye in as far as pace is concerned.
You know, I've been thinking about Alizaya at the start of the race in a way, because the last time he had a very good start and was on a good way in Jeddah was in RCL. The last time we featured Jeddah there. And it got so downhill from there, where he then got pinched in the hairpin and all that kind of stuff. Didn't have luck in any of those races, and maybe this is finally time for him to redeem himself. Not to commentators curse it, which I now, of course, did, but it would be a great story for him, I think.
I think the important thing is that I haven't said it, because I seem to be the worst at cursing people.
I don't think you're particularly worse. I think they just come into effect differently. Like, what I've seen, especially from the clip that Enrico Bräuninger created on Twitch.
From yesterday.
From yesterday. So if you do clip Twitch clips this way around, I do actually go through them and feature them if they're cool. So go ahead and do it. But you just talk about people and then they tend to do mistakes. I tend to talk that somebody is doing particularly good and then they are doing particularly bad shortly after. So let's hope that this isn't the case here today.
I think last week, the LCL, I managed to commentators curse someone when we weren't even watching it live, which might be a record.
That could be it, yeah. But maybe you cursed him in the past. I don't know.
But Enrico Bräuninger seems to have got the measure of Rowan de Hood as far as pace is concerned here, and he's pulled out a fairly decent gap. Ali Zahir now into the 58s, so his pace is just going up and up and up. He's really getting to grips with his car.
Yeah, and you can actually visually see that he's getting more comfortable with it, getting closer to the walls, especially through the entries, through the turns. But yeah, confidence is a big part of driving this car. If you are confident, if you feel good with the way the car behaves, which is way easier in race mode, of course, you just know when you push the pedal down what is gonna happen. Because it does behave differently. I mean, the car is not really slipping away from you, is it? It has all-wheel drive. It's pulling more than it's pushing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But of course, this leads to understeer. So if you do it too early, you will also end up in a wall. But if you do it too late, yeah, you lose a lot of lap time and just don't really feel like the car's doing what you want. And Aliza just seems to have found that sweet spot in between.
Yeah, 'cause not only is it kind of the only electric car we currently have in RENNSPORT, but I think it's the only all-wheel drive car, so it's doubly weird to drive compared to some of the more conventional race cars we have in-game.
Yeah, of course, because we have the rear-wheel drive versions of the M Hybrid and 963, and even then they are only supportive all-wheel drive systems that are allowed in WC. Even I'm not sure if they are allowed for this season. Not quite sure on that. But in IMSA, of course, it's rear-wheel drive only.
Yeah.
So this is the actual only all-wheel drive car we have. So far. Who knows? I think with the car roster we have now, we definitely can say we are not a GT3 game. I think there's a lot of
No, that's
great
true.
different content to offer.
Oh, God, my word. I know we do tend to show quite a lot of GT3 content. We're pretty good at sprinkling other things in and out of there, but GT3s are by far the most popular car racing class in sim racing right now. So
In racing
they
history,
always,
I'd say.
yeah. So they do certainly more bring the numbers in than in the other class. But we do try to mix things up and bring in the other classes. We have some good cars in RENNSPORT, so it's good to showcase them as well to you guys.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's maybe a better topic for a different stream where we actually race GT3s or something. But GT3, after all, is also, if you look at real world motorsports, as there's a lot of damage to the front right still of Pionkiewicz's car. I think there's never been a time where a class has been this dominant. Because even in the old Group A and Group A days, or even before that, the classes, you may have had some popular cars, but not in this amount, and you didn't have this many racing series that we have nowadays. You can basically buy one GT3 and race all across the world, which is awesome. Can't put it any other way.
Yeah, if you want to be a gentleman racer, then you kind of can't go wrong with a GT3 car right now. I can't. I'm not that rich.
Can only do it in the virtual world.
I can't even afford to drive a go-kart, never mind a GT3 car.
I mean, we could ramble on about GT car history, which we will do in other streams because I will be in them.
We
But
never do that.
we'd never do that. But instead of that, why not talk about the Porsche Mission R's history? I mean, of course, the car itself in the real world of motorsports unfortunately doesn't have too much history. There were a lot of plans for it, but they never really came to fruition. But in RENNSPORT, this is, of course, one of the core cars, and one that, just like the Porsche 911 GT3 R RENNSPORT, bit of a mouthful, not as easy to say as the Mission R, but which is, of course, a car that shares our name. This one has shared pretty much all of our history in the game. It was part of the very first summit in 2022. And it got added to the closed beta, I think, in early 2023.
Yeah.
But we basically had it together in development for 3 years before that. And yeah, I think it's a car that, while may not be the most known and popular out there in a way, means a lot to us here at RENNSPORT.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique car to drive, and it's not one you get to drive in many places, that's for sure. So yeah, it's a bit of a feather in our cap and an unofficial mascot, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, I can pretty much put it that way. Pionkiewicz coming into the pits to repair the car. Which is definitely a good
Yeah,
choice, and is just getting now used to the car again for race 2.
He's also got a drive-through penalty to be served, which won't be served this time because he's pitting.
Aliza now 12 seconds to Enrico Boiniger, and he's still pretty much close on his best pace. Last time a 58.5, his best lap a 58.3.
Yeah, he seems to be ever so slowly getting quicker and quicker in this car. Just learning its limits and where he can push it, and he's doing a really good job of it. I can't complain there. And Enrico Boiniger has now joined the sub 2 minute club with his best lap of 1:59.988. Rowan de Hood just missing out on a 2 minutes 0.931, so he's got about a second to gain before he joins the 2 minute club.
You know what will be the fun feature for race 2?
No.
You actually don't?
No.
Okay, fair point. Well, currently it is 12. Oh, wait, it's 13:21 in game. And now, do you want to let the people know? Do you want to let the people know what we can expect for race 2?
Oh, sorry, the stream froze for a minute there for me. So yeah, race 2 is going to be in the night, I believe.
Very much so. We will go from noon to start the race to midnight. Of course, in Jeddah, it is never really midnight. It's not like it will be dark, but it does change a few things in terms of visibility, in terms of how you pick your braking points as well, because some things are easier to spot than others. Of course, you don't really have shadows to go by on this track, neither in the night nor at day, but I know that people do tend to use shadows as braking points, which if you can hear this and you do this, stop doing it. It really isn't a good idea.
It's very much not a good idea. Don't use shadows as braking points. It's bad.
I remember
or
for the
anything destructible.
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember for the 24-hour Nürburgring, the real one, there was a driver in an interview saying that he used like a trash can or an old oil barrel or something. I think in English we would call it a flaming barrel. Like if you take an old oil barrel and put like a fire in it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As a braking marker for a turn, and during the race they just got rid of it. And he approached the turn and the barrel was gone. And he was there like, yeah, where to brake. That's why you maybe shouldn't use something that can be taken away during the race.
We don't have destructible braking markers in RENNSPORT, at least not yet.
We had them.
We had them.
We had them, but well, for ESL R1, there were quite a few complaints that if somebody took them out, you wouldn't really have braking markers left.
Well, that's why you shouldn't use destructible braking markers as braking markers. Those pesky ESL R1 drivers ruining my phone.
Maybe it will be a toggle in the future, who knows?
I hope so. I'd like to see it come back.
I mean, it isn't as much of an issue in Jeddah, maybe for the cones in Turn 1 telling you where the track limits are, but the rest is pretty simple because the track limits are the walls. So,
yes.
And the brake markers are on the walls. If you hit them with any car, you have my dearest respect. Might actually make a challenge out of it.
Yeah, you'd have to go above and beyond to take out a braking marker at Jeddah.
Maybe if we had trucks at some point.
But in other sim racing games, shall we say, the braking markers coming up to the chicane at Nürburgring are pretty much guaranteed to go within the first couple of laps. And anybody who uses those braking markers as braking markers, will quickly find themselves hitting a wall.
That's why I use curbs. But Ali Zahia, driving on a curb, entering the last turn, will enter his final lap in just a few seconds.
Brilliant segue. I love that.
Almost like I practiced. I didn't. But yeah, very neatly through turns 1 and 2. Actually, turn 1 and 2 are not that easy, I think, in the mission. I've driven quite a few laps to test, and also for the time trial, which is featured. If you take a look at the Discord at the time trial channel, you can see that currently we have the mission R at Jeddah featured, which is the thing that our moderator Slowmo is putting on every week, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's been doing that for a long time, and it seems fairly popular, depending on the combination. Some combinations are more loved than others.
Yeah, it got some traction over the recent time.
Yeah, for sure. And then it can get pretty competitive for the top spot.
Yeah, I mean, last time we had the BMW M4 at Daytona, the GT4 car, and it was down to a few hundredth in the end.
Yeah, it was very close in the top spots.
And currently, of course, with the Mission R here at this track, turns 1 and 2 can be quite challenging. I'd say it's hard to find a good braking spot for it because you're coming from such a high speed. And hitting the curbs kind of unsettles the car a lot because it's very stiff. It's something that you don't quite see here on Jeddah because it's a very flat circuit. But even for a flat circuit like this, the car's jumping around quite a lot, which you notice while driving.
Yeah, it's one of the cars that, which would, like we said earlier, we have had in the game for a long time, but it kind of needs maybe a bit of TLC to bring it kind of up to the standards of some of the other cars. It's still very fun to drive, but it's in need of a bit of renewal.
Yeah, and of course it was set up before we had tracks like Road Atlanta. But Ali Zahir coming across the line, he wins race 1. There will be another race to follow. Vladislav Pionkiewicz coming home in 6th, so we will hopefully see him for the second race as well. And Enrico Boninger, yeah, the finish line is a bit later than that usually, but comes home in 3rd. I think I spotted another car going into the pits and finishing there. That was Anson Flyer. Brandon Hood will finish in 3rd.
Ali Zahir made a brave attempt to do some donuts in an all-wheel drive car, but it didn't quite work out.
I wonder if Ron can do another start like this in race 2. That was absolutely phenomenal what he did there to take the lead.
It was a fantastic start.
And I mean, looking at lap times, he also got into the 2 minutes. So he's not far off Enrico Bräuninger. If he can take the lead, I reckon he can keep him behind. If they can get in front of Ali Zahir and keep him behind, that will be a different question, because Ali Zahir seems to be in a bit of a different league here with this car.
Yeah, his best lap time is pretty quick compared to the 2nd and 3rd place best lap times. But you never know. Race 2 is a different beast.
You can also see it again, the time trial challenge, Porsche Mission R Jeddah. And yeah, apart from that, this is currently what you can drive during this week. You can also drive the Mission R at Spa in the feature race we have. Or you just go for the hourly races at either Jeddah or Orchard Road. Orchard Road has also been a track where we had a lot of fun with this car.
Yeah.
But we are getting ready now for race 2. Can see 6 cars remain on the grid.
Yeah, we had a few DNFs in the last race, and they've decided not to hang around for the second round.
But the second round goes green here in Jeddah. Ensign Flyer not going away so far, but Enrico Browninger on the inside into turn 1. A bit of contact with Ali Zahir, who's now forced wide. Oh, and also contact between the two FDRT drivers.
Oh, that's not what you want as a team boss.
Oh, and down the inside for P4. That was, I think, Pionkiewicz, who's letting Piotr Zadybel back through. That is a good move, or a gentleman move there. Seems to be a game-related issue for Ensign Pfeiler.
Yeah, I'm just going to black flag him to make sure his car isn't there when the other drivers get round. I'll leave it a little bit in case he gets going, but I won't leave him too much longer.
Yeah, of course, that's an issue we will try to resolve on the Discord after this event. Oh, and Ronan Hood with the touch there with the wall. But Ali Zahir now in clean air, he will be able to build a bit of a gap to the two FDRT drivers. But Enrico Breuninger behind Ronan Hood, that is exactly what we've been talking about for Ronan Hood. This might be a good chance with the pace he got used to on the last race. Pionkiewicz moved up into fourth.
He's just started moving on some flyer.
Okay. That's very good to see. Of course, major disadvantage here for him, but race is still long and we've seen the last race, how things can go. But we are now under the lights of Jeddah.
Unfortunately, he got moving just after I pressed to black flag him from the race. I'm very sorry about that, Anson.
What he's saying, it's fine. But definitely something we will take a look at afterwards. Oh, big damage again to the front right of Pionkiewicz. But now under the lights, I think Jeddah looks very different, even though everything is so illuminated, might as well be daytime. Gets a lot more colorful at night, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a strange effect. Obviously, the background's a lot more colorful with the skyscrapers and the big Ferris wheel in the background. But the track also seems to kind of up the contrast somehow.
Look at how much faster Enrico Breuninger can take the hairpin.
Is he going to go for the overtake or the bump draft?
I don't think he will bump draft this one. It's not quite straight enough to really do that. Oh, and Breuninger understeering into the wall. Oh, and big impact on the front. Managed to... That wasn't 360, that was 1080 or something, but... How much damage is there to his car, and especially the front left, because this might bring Piotr Zadybel in, because we know, a very consistent driver as well. Might not be always the fastest, but consistent and keeps his car in shape. And it seems like Enrico Breuninger is pulling into the pits.
Yeah, he did have the repair your car message up. I wasn't sure if he was getting the full-on mechanical meatball flag, but he's decided to pop in to get it fixed anyway.
I mean, luckily for him, he doesn't quite need the headlights. But he didn't repair, as it seems.
No, he didn't actually do the repair there. I don't know what happened.
So the question from Ernst and Pfeiler in chat being, when is the next RC? That is actually a good question. RCEs we have every second week. So in 2 weeks' time, on the 15th, we will have the next RC, but there are more events in the meantime. Every Friday we have a race. Next week it will be RCL, which is the Community League GT3 cars, in this case at the Nürburgring. And in 2 weeks on Friday, so on the 14th, there's the Nordschleife League going into its 4th round with the BMW M2. And if you look for different races in the meantime, of course, we have the official schedule, which we've just shown in between the races. But there's also community leagues. We have the M2 Challenge. I think it resumes next week. So it took 1 week break.
So, yeah.
But that one will be back up and running for round 4. And Ron Den Hood, FDRT, is broadcasting on Thursdays now with his FDRL league.
I think the other 2 leagues we tend to have running are they on little breaks right now?
Indeed, SBR and TRL are on little breaks, but therefore we got FDRL as a replacement.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're on Thursdays. They're also a GT3 league, and they do broadcast the races, so that's definitely something worth checking out. But if you want to know any community events or what races are happening, in the Discord there's a section called Community Sporting, where you can see all the leagues and events running in the near future. So they are basically your go-to place if you want to say, okay, I want to race on that and that day, or looking to race if you want to just meet up with people to race. There are chances to connect to people. And Enrico Browning is still continuing with this car.
I think we post about our community races to the socials as well, don't we?
Indeed, you can find them on the socials. There's also some other stuff on the way regarding the socials, which I'm not quite sure when it will be up and running. But it should help creating a bit of an overview over all the community. If you think back quite some time, we had the weekly posts of the community leagues and stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, this is what we are planning to bring back in a better form.
But Ali Zahir, building on his confidence from the first race, now doing 57s. He's doing a 57.5 as his last lap. So he's really getting to grips with his car now. He's fine-tuning his lines and his throttle control. I'm waiting for Enrico Breuninger to come through to finish his lap after his failed pit stop, just to see kind of what lap time he's going to do. To see if we can figure out if he's got any chance of catching Piotr Znibel or not. He's just coming around the last hairpin and into the start-finish straight.
And again, staying out as well.
Yeah, he did a 2-minute 0.5, so it's pretty quick. He's faster than anyone ahead of him except for Ali Zahir, even with that mangled front end.
Maybe he got lucky and basically compromised down to only aero damage. Actually, we just had a lot of Hockenheim events, so just a tad late. Last 2 weeks were filled with that track, but Hockenheim will, of course, come back sooner or later. Just depends a bit on what racing action we feature apart from that. But yeah, it is a very popular track, so I can bet on it coming back.
Yeah, just like the Mission R is kind of near and dear to our hearts, with it being one of the earliest Rennsport cars. Hockenheim is one of our earliest tracks.
Well, not one of the earliest.
Was it the first?
It was the first track.
So
alongside Goodwood, I think. I think those two coexisted early on. They were definitely part of the first summit. we will get a good look at the Ferris wheel. Not quite as beautiful as the Nürburgring one, but it is nonetheless impressive. But I'm definitely not biased in that opinion.
No, definitely not, no. I think it was only a couple of weeks ago we were ranking Ferris wheels on racetracks as well.
Yeah, I think this is the important stuff. You know, people have been ranking liveries for the ESL drivers and tracks and cars and so. You need to rank Ferris wheels.
Yeah,
Or things like that.
It's the kind of detailed content you can only get here on the RENNSPORT Twitch channel.
Have you ever noticed that there's a blimp on Daytona?
There is a blimp on Daytona, that is very true.
But if we spot another one on another track, we can rank blimps.
I was always a bit disappointed there wasn't like one of the camera angles isn't from the blimp.
Oh, that would be awesome. The car we've just seen stationary outside the track, that was Pironkiewicz letting Ali Zahir through. So all good there. Planned maneuver.
Enrico Bräuning is currently lapping about 2 seconds a lap faster than Piotr Zadybal. There's a 13-second gap, so he'd need about 7 laps to close the gap up. Now, the lap is 2 minutes here, so if you've got some big brain maths going on, 7 laps is 14 minutes, but there's only just under 13 minutes of the race left.
But of course, the final lap extends, so you have about 26-minute race.
True.
Depending on the pace of Ali Zahir, but this race is a bit faster than the last one, I think. Yeah. So maybe we'll even get one more lap. Hard to tell right now. I mean,
he's going to have to stay on track. Like, in intensive gating time, not stay on the actual physical track. I'm going to assume that's a given.
Stay on target.
Yeah.
Mr. Native English speaker.
Piotr Zadybal did speed up a bit last lap, though, and managed to do a sub 2 minute 2. So Enrico Bräuninger didn't quite take as much out of him last lap as he did the lap before. It was Piotr Zadybal's fastest lap of the race, actually. Rowan de Hood, best lap currently is a 2 minute 00.2, so he's edging ever closer to that sub 2 minute club.
I mean, that would be a nice target for him to chase.
Yeah, for sure. He's only got a couple of tenths to make up. He can do it. Rowan is one of the guys from our community who loves a time trial. So he's no stranger to the chasing tenths.
You know, after seeing qualifying, I would have thought that at least one of the races would go to an FDRT drivers, and while this day may happen, so it's not ruled out completely, but Aliza, he started quite far down the grid in race 1. I think he didn't have a lap time, but he just came blasting through like a maniac in that first race.
Yeah.
Can't really put it any other way. And
yeah, we've not had a first lap, well, first sector kind of session like that since Nico Nunninghoff at Spa.
Well, that was something else.
Yeah, it was.
I don't think we will see anything like that anytime soon.
No.
How this worked out, I have no idea. If you're watching this and wondering what we are talking about 8 to 10 months ago, I think it was, we had a championship called the ESL R1 Runners-Up Cup, which was featured on... Oh, that's Jankovic in the wall again, unfortunately, but still carrying on. Which was a subsidiary of ESL1, which you could qualify for, and the race was basically then rebroadcasted and was featured on the official ESL1 broadcast. And the championship was, I think you entered through a time trial, and the fastest 12 got in. One of our fastest drivers we ever had in RENNSPORT was Nico Nöninghoff, in the community events and stuff. And he was pretty good in that championship as well. Had very good races, but at Spa he topped everything by starting, I think it was 10th or 12th, actually. Because he had a slowdown.
12th, yeah.
And the rest of the grid was still packed. You had people like Ladla in there, you had Pompilio in there, you had a lot of good names. And of course we knew Nico Nüninghoff was starting 12th, and we were reckoning he would go through the field, but what he did in La Source was just go down the inside of everyone and enter Eau Rouge in first. There's a clip here on Twitch, I think. If you go to clips and then featured, it should be there. That was absolutely undescribable, because there was just a tiny gap going into La Source, and he just took it, and nobody bothered to defend from him, basically, because they didn't realize he was there. And suddenly Nico Nüninghoff leading the race after turn 1. One of the most iconic moments, I think, in RENNSPORT history.
It was an impressive move, to say the least. But it took some stones to try it.
Took a lot of them, actually. I also really loved Remco's reaction, because back then, of course, I was commentating together with Remco. And he didn't quite believe it as well.
No.
But it's stuff like this that just really, sticks around and builds a legacy over time.
Unfortunately, we can't really talk about tracks we're adding that anything, asking in Twitch chat. But there's not really, unless it's been announced, we definitely can't say it.
We don't even quite know what will be added anyway, so...
No, that's true.
Even if we wanted to, we couldn't quite give you info on that. But there will be more real-life racetracks, there will be more mod support racetrack like we had with Quest and Orchard Road. So I think you can expect a good mix in the future. That's pretty safe to say, and that's, I think, the route we are going for.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially Orchard Road, I think it was a bit hard to get it received well at first, because it's not a real racetrack and stuff. But people really like it nowadays, and it's also a track I really like.
Yeah. There is a certain amount of pushback against non-real world racetracks, but some of them can be really good. Give them a try. They might not be names you know, but go out and try them. There's a reason mod tracks are fairly popular in the sim racing community, in games that allow them. And it's not just filling gaps which officially may or may not be there.
Yeah, and it gives a lot of variety. I mean, you can drive Spa in pretty much any racing game you want. But if you say, okay, I want to drive something like Orchard or like Quest, I mean, Quest is very special. You can only do that here at the moment properly, basically. And I'm looking forward to having more of those alongside real world racetracks. I think that's a cool mix that also Gran Turismo, of course, is very famous for. I think they really planted the ideas a long time ago.
Yeah, there's some definitely kind of classics in the Gran Turismo and the Forza world, which have kind of made a name for themselves. as not real world racetracks.
And where Crest is very difficult to learn. It's a long track. It has the
It is,
difficulty of the Nordschleife, basically. So if you struggle with it, don't worry. It's not because you are inherently a bad driver or anything. It's just a very difficult track to learn. But once you get behind it, I wasn't a fan of it at first, but once I got behind the driving of it, and you should try it with a TCR or a GT4 or the M2. Those are great cars for this track. I really started to love driving it. It then starts to have a really nice flow to it. And especially the bankings, if you think about the long straight with the left-hander in the end, those are really fun to take, and something you will never experience on any real racetrack. Let me tell you that.
No, that's true.
Just very satisfying.
If you want a bit of a tip for maybe learning a track like Crest, is pick a car and pick a very slow time trial ghost. And just follow it until you can beat it, and then go for a bit of a quicker one.
Yeah, that's very much the way to do it.
You've got some kind of braking reference.
It's also always one thing I try to give on the way for people trying to start out with sim racing or something. Even when your race is not going well or something and you end up a lap down, you can really use it to learn. Because, for example, with Pionkiewicz in this race, wasn't quite fortunate, but whilst driving behind the likes of Zaher or Den Hoed or Bräuniger after being a lap down, you can just see what they are doing and start copying it. And that's pretty much the best situation you can have in that moment, because you are directly learning from a pro without them telling you anything.
Yeah, getting sneaky coaching from the other drivers is always a handy thing to do when you're maybe a bit off the pace.
And it's, of course, something we've been talking about, especially in the long endurance races, that if you are stuck behind a car, sometimes you don't want to overtake because you're not necessarily faster. But just staying in the tow and learning from what they are doing can be faster for you as well. And we've seen people improve pace on that as well. So there's a lot to learning to race cars than just being fast in the end.
Unfortunately for Enrico Bräuninger, Piotr Zadybal is now in the 2-minute club, posting a 2-minute .85. So he's not only managed to close the gap to 7 seconds, I don't think he's going to be able to make it before the end of the race.
Yeah, very much so. And Piotr Zadybal is actually a good example of what we've been talking about. He's been, let's say, very quiet in most races we've seen him in. But he's currently running third, comfortably. He has the car in a good shape, and he's improving pace over time. Started the race on the 202s, 203s, and is now on the 200s.
Yeah, he's always a quiet one, isn't he, in races? Piotr Zadybal.
I mean, he had to get his elbows out a bit last time in the RCL, but that wasn't really down to his decision. And of course, if you are ever stuck with an issue, there are lots of people on the Discord, in the community in general, that will help you out. Not every Discord is as mean as some other sim racing Discords out there from certain communities that will tell you to get good.
That is very true. Although we do that, we tend to do it more in jest to people we know.
Take what we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Alizar here coming around the last big left-hander up to the hairpin. It's going to be the end of the race for him with a fairly commanding lead.
But an even more dominant victory to his name. It's redemption day, I'd say, for Alizar. 2 races, 2 wins. Congratulations to Alizar. This was long overdue, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Making another attempt at donuts, but still not quite getting there. It's still all-wheel drive alley.
Radoslav Pionkiewicz coming on the final turn, just a little push with the wall, but he won't be bothered by that too much because he will still finish this race, which I think is a very respectable feat in itself. He's not been in RENNSPORT for too long, so it is a very challenging car and track combination. You can't really put it any other way. Rondon Hood coming home in second. And Piotr Zadaibe picking up a podium.
Yeah, he's going to be happy with that for sure. And probably just equally as happy with his increase in pace.
Yeah, this was it basically for today's race. I think it was very we really had. I mean, in qualifying, I asked you what do you expect from the race, and you said pretty much everything, and that's what happened. Pretty much everything.
Yeah, I'm going to take that as a win.
Yeah, you won this one. And I didn't curse Alizar. I just want to give attention to that. It didn't cause any anomalies. I think, at least.
No, he seemed to do all right. Even if you did curse him, he still won twice.
Very much so. And I'm curious to see what next week will bring, where we go to RCL Season 5, Round 2, or Episode 2, which is at the Nürburgring GP. I think that will be fairly interesting again. We haven't done Nürburgring, except for the Nordschleife, of course, but Nürburgring GP in quite a while, I think. The last time was with the TCRs, where Joachim Thunder won over Dominik Ladler by 11.2 seconds, because he keeps reminding us every week. I can recall that number.
Yeah, that seems about right.
So this will be the racing action. If you look for any other bigger events like this, in the meantime, until Friday, there's the M2 World Challenge on Tuesdays and the FDRL race, which is also broadcasted by Rondon Hood and Nathan Solomon on Thursday, 8 p.m.
And just a quick shout out to Mr. and Mrs. De Hood, who apparently Rowan's parents watch.
Hello and welcome. Well, this will be some trivia, but yeah, it's nice. That's nice to know. I think Ron made them happy today. Was a good performance he showed. So
yeah, they've got to be pretty happy with that, I would have thought.
Let's see what he will do next week. I mean, I'm assuming he will race in the RCL next week. I'm also curious to see if Maximilian Dehn will back, because, of course, these two have a bit of a rivalry going on in terms of racing. That will be very interesting to watch. So we wish you a great rest of the weekend and a great start into the next week. Until then, have a great time. Do you have any final words for us today?
Nope, I don't think I do.
No words of wisdom?
Just thank you for everyone for taking part. Wisdom? I doubt it.
Well, anyway, thank you all for watching. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.